Back here on CBS Sports HQ, and we're back in the ring. Jake Paul going toe-to-toe with 39-year-old Julio César Chávez Jr., and it's another win for Jake Paul. He was greeted with boos post-fight after winning his 6th straight fight, calling out anyone and everyone requesting multiple title shots at a possible rematch with Tommy Fury. Jake claims he's just getting warmed up. This was just his 13th professional boxing fight. Back here with Brian Campbell, Danny Vithlani. BC, what did you see? What are your takeaways from this latest bout from Jake Paul?
It kind of depends on what we're judging him. If we're judging Jake Paul as a future cruiserweight title challenger, I'd have to say he has a long way to go. But going 10 rounds against a former champion, even if that former champion is a Julio César Chávez Jr., who was 39 years old and really 13 years or so removed from credibility in the ring, at least Jake had to go 10 hard rounds, which was an improvement from some of the 8-round fights he's had earlier. And he had to fight off a somewhat stiff challenge late from a Chavez who pretty much took the first 4 rounds off completely of this fight and really took a long time to heat up and finally get going. I don't mean to be a hater here, but you do have to judge with some knowledge compared to the rest of boxing. It's one thing to be the best celebrity fighter in the world. It's another thing to legitimately climb the ladder and fight for a cruiserweight world title.
And this is a kind of Mickey Mouse path to the title shot that he might carve for himself. If Jake Paul is able to get a WBC ranking next to his name by having defeated a former middleweight champion, then kudos to him for the way he's done it. A genius marketer, but with the credibility, like BC alluded to, is not at the highest level. Although, you know, he did fight a tough fight in the last 5 rounds of this one. You saw Chavez Jr. decided in the 5th round, you know, I am here to fight. I'm going to make something of myself. And Paul sustained a late onslaught from him. But, you know, how much can we credit him looking good, using his size and his youth and his speed for the first 5 rounds against the guy who was just kind of taking the fight off early on? Again, we're not giving too much credit to Jake Paul in this one.
Julio César Chávez Jr., 40 punches in the last 3 rounds. So, BC, he does absorb that. There has to be some credit. There has to be some credit due to Jake Paul with that he's able to absorb it and be able to still get the unanimous decision victory.
I'll give him. Went 10 hard rounds, took some big shots late, overall carried out his game plan, which was get there behind the jab, but really target that body with the right hand, which was interesting because that's the biggest strength Chavez had coming in, right? We know the legacy of his legendary father, the Hall of Famer, Julio César, always going hard to the body. Chavez did bring that, at least on paper, to it, but it was Jake who really outworked him and slowed him down there. Again, in this vein of celebrity crossover, Jake is improving fight by fight. He did say, I've got a long way to go. If that is the case, then this was the proper matchmaking in the evolution. But that isn't the case when you hear him talk, because he is calling out champions. He is talking about sooner, not later, from that idea of really, I don't want to use the term cashing yourself out, but truly testing yourself. This isn't the fight that solves that question of when are you going to fight a real fighter.
What did you think about him getting booed in the ring post-fight?
His mentality is really interesting to me because at this point, he thrives as much off the hate as he does the love. Like, you've got to really condition your mind to be willing to accept hate off of a win, right? He just performed out there. He said you're going to see the best performance you ever have. He talks a big fight every time pre-fight to build up the hype, to sell the tickets. Sometimes it's wolf tickets, right, and it doesn't come through. But nonetheless, he's conditioned to the mentality. Whatever reaction he gets, it doesn't faze him. He just keeps going. And BC said it. His boxing is getting better. Even though it's not against high-caliber competition, he is improving his skill here and there. After that 5th, 6th round, he starts kind of going Philly shell. The hands come a little lower. He labors a bit. He's there to get hit. So I want to see him take on a real boxer, but some credit due. I mean, he's improving his skills.
I think he's got to go back and fix that 1 loss on his record, and that came, of course, against Tommy Fury, the stepbrother of former heavyweight champion Tyson Fury, who, yes, maybe we look at Tommy Fury as more reality TV star than boxer, but he was trained. He did have an amateur background, and in that fight, a close fight in which Jake scored a knockdown late, Tommy Fury did get the split decision win rightfully. And he did it basically, to be honest. A lot of jab and holding. Tommy was somebody who, like Chavez tonight, was actually Jake's size, which has not been a consistent pattern in Jake's career. He pretty much always has a built-in youth, experience, or size or power advantage. I think going back against Fury, who hasn't been overly willing to make the rematch, maybe if a little bit more money thrown his way, he would, because he did win the first one. I think in the eyes of a lot of people who criticize Jake, if he could just go back there and redeem that loss, I think that would be even more monumental to his reputation than beating a former champion like Chavez, who hasn't looked anything like a former champion in more than a decade.
I agree.
Do you think that people are tuning in, watching, paying for the pay-per-view to see him lose? Are they waiting for that moment to go, Told you, novelty, not real. This is fake.
That's the brilliance of his marketing.
Right? Because sometimes the villain also gets paid too.
Well, he also knows how to play the hero and the villain at the same time, the babyface and the heel if we're talking about pro wrestling. He brings in the younger fans that follow him on his YouTube channel, and a lot of times you're bringing in those same older, angrier boxing fans. It's like, when are you going to fight somebody? I'm tuning in to knock you out. But don't forget, his brother Logan Paul, an excellent heel on the pro wrestling side in WWE, and the Pauls, from the very beginning, becoming actors, YouTube sensations. They know how to work a camera. They know how to work an audience. They know how to sell. I will never criticize that side of Jake.
Sure.
He's an excellent boxing promoter. He's an excellent old-school carnival barker. And you did see him react to those boos with offense, not defense, back at the fans.
And you look at the way that he set up that Mike Tyson fight, I think it's a perfect analogy about that babyface / heel, right? The way that you set yourself up against an aging 58-year-old legend and then decide that he's going to get hurt and you don't hurt him. Instead, you show that mercy, right? You make sure that you don't hurt that old legend that everyone loves. So you credit him for the respect, but then you discredit him for setting up a sham of a fight. Well, what do you get both sides of it. So either way, the lovers tune in, the haters tune in. He's a marketing genius, and we're watching still.
A lot like you on HQ, Huck.
Yeah, there we go. Hey, I'm trying to sell storylines here, okay? And one of the storylines I'm trying to sell here that I'm curious because it's something that we brought up in the green room while we're watching UFC 317, the timing of this fight. Yeah. Why go up against the UFC? If you want more fans, sometimes maybe go a little bit earlier because we know that's how major professional sports works. The NFL's on Sunday. Hey, a lot of teams and a lot of sports aren't going to play on Sunday, right? We know about that. If you're Jake Paul and you want to be a great marketer, how about you watch me a little bit earlier, then go and watch UFC? To me, that's a better plan. What did you think of that?
Well, I think it's the ego coming in because Jake Paul, again, this is the juggling he does. He is the main event, the A side of his own pay-per-views. He's also the promoter, and he's also doing, as I mentioned, a fantastic job in the traditional boxing promotional space, particularly in women's boxing, where he's given so many opportunities to so many under-recognized elite fighters, including future Hall of Famer Amanda Serrano. But if you did notice, this pay-per-view card in this evening, the pace was abhorrent. They purposely waited, it seemed, to go head-to-head with the UFC. I think it's still part of Jake, the ego saying, I have this. I have a Mexican opponent. I know I'm bringing in those boxing fans. I want to compete head-to-head. Ambitious, yes, but this wasn't the fight to do it going up against Topuria versus Oliveira.
No, sir.
What did you think? I mean, right, we're sitting there going, let's go. Come on, let's go. Let's fight. All right. So when you look in terms of his next opponents, BC, what are you thinking about in terms of who you'd put in front of him next?
Well, look, I mentioned the Tommy Fury fight. I think that's the direction they should aggressively go. I'd like to see Jake stop mentioning exhibition fights like he's been this entire year, including lightweight champion Gervonta Davis, who fights at 135 pounds. No commission is going to sanction that. It would be another carnival exhibition. And that, in some cases, is the Jake Paul problem. He speaks out of both sides of his mouth. As much as he's talking about wanting to fight for a title, who did he fight last time? Nearly 60-year-old Mike Tyson. He did mention Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez, who defended his unified cruiserweight title in the co-main event. Jake, not ready for that, in my opinion. But he also mentioned an aging cruiserweight title holder in Badou Jack, who's into his 40s, a former super middleweight title holder. That's a more realistic title opportunity for Jake, but I have no confidence of the belief that Jake will go into that within even the next year. I think a lot more experience is necessary. Remember, this is just his 13th pro fight. He had no amateur career. There are elements to the Jake experience that you have to respect, how quickly he's taken to this sport. But again, levels to these things.
Is there no one out there his age within a year or two to see where he stacks up against a talent like that?
Not
to me,
marketable.
That's what I want to see.
That's not who he fights.
Like to me, it's like you're calling out these old guys. You're bringing these guys that are way past their prime. Like, I want to see what you can do against somebody at your level, your age. Like, what is that guy? What does a guy that's 28, 29 look like against a Jake Paul?
He takes care of it with that amateur background, with
but then maybe
shots with a chin.
So then maybe that's what we got to do.
You might see like a regional scene boxer that nobody's ever heard of easily work Jake Paul over the course of 12 rounds with amateur-style boxing, defense, and movement and precision, right? So, yeah, he's setting it up again. I think BC is right that Badou Jack, the 43-year-old, is more likely his next opponent. We're watching that Zurdo Ramirez fight, and no way he's ready for those hands yet. He fought a skilled Cuban boxer in Dorticos in that last one, who's super tough as well. That guy went the distance with him. I don't think Jake would do as nearly as well as Dorticos. So he's going to have to look for an older opponent. He could once again use those athleticism and youth advantages.
But the problem is none of these names of what you're asking for. A 25-year-old cruiserweight, maybe on the verge of the top 10. There's no money in there. It's not marketable. And one thing, Jake, like I said, speaking out of both sides of his mouth, he can say all he wants, that he's a legitimate fighter going down this lane, but he knows to sell these pay-per-views, you need the aging MMA names. You need the Chavez last name. You need the Mike Tyson. So I think you're going to continue to see that juggling from Jake. But if you remember what Tommy Fury did to him, it was a sweet science. It wasn't rocket science. It was jab, hold, jab, hold. I think Jake first has to prove that he can get past that L on his record, and then we'll talk about more of these type of fights.
You mentioned where the money's coming from. These guys won you some money on this night, including Jake Paul, unanimous decision. You're not going to lay minus 700 or minus 550. These guys, men of the people. Brian Campbell, Danny Vithlani, knowledge in your mind, money in your pocket. Men, thank you. It was a pleasure all night long to watch the fights. Jake Paul, 12-1 in his career, now on a 6-fight win streak. That was just his 13th professional boxing fight. He says, bring anyone, bring all of you. Come at me. I'm ready for anything. Whatever's next, I'll take it.